I want to give you a general overview of 5 principles that are talked about by many different groups in this area of agriculture: regenerative agriculture, holistic permaculture, and so forth. So these are 5 principles of soil health. What we're really working at is if we can improve the health of our soil, then it will help us to raise our livestock and to have crops that are healthy and productive. So in many ways, guys talk about being farmers of the soil, because if it's the soil is good, the other things will come. The first thing we talk about is limited disturbance. In other words, that's where I use the term no tilling. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do absolutely any, but we want to minimize it, because as I told you, by tilling, or particularly by turning the soil upside down, which happens with some of the machinery that's used in tilling, then that completely destroys all the homes and communities and structures of the microbes under the ground, and therefore they can't spend their time helping with the plants growing. They have to work on their own homes, to build their own homes in a sense. So we want to have limited disturbance. Now, disturbance is physical and tilling, but also disturbance can come by using fertilizer. When you use chemical fertilizers, they say that only about 40% of the fertilizer you put down actually gets absorbed. So it's kind of makes you feel bad that more than half of it you're wasting your money in some ways. But it also, if you can think about these microbes under the ground, they're happy to work with you and for you, as long as you put plants there that are taking the sunlight and water and collecting that together for photosynthesis, and then having sugar come out of their roots. And then those little creatures, the bacteria and microbes, they go and want to get some of that because it has carbon in it, and they give you in exchange, they already give you, for example, nitrogen that they're able to collect for us. So, but if we put fertilizer, then those organisms are, in a way, they're kind of pushed to the side, you can think of it. And the roots are taking up this other that's available through the chemical, and they're not having this beneficial relationship between the insects and the plants. So that's another disturbance. Okay, that's the first principle of soil health. Now the second one is you want to keep your ground or your soil covered at all times. Don't have bare soil. Don't just see bare dirt or soil. The reason is the temperatures, when the sun shines on that, that's too hot for the little microbes in the soil, and it'll kill them. So we want to keep it covered so it keeps the temperature at a temperature that they can thrive and live well in. Now, covering the soil will also help keep the moisture, any moisture when it rains, it will keep it down in the soil and not have it evaporate up in the atmosphere. So those are some beneficial things about having your soil covered. Now, that's what I've done with the mulch. I covered it with mulch, heavy mulch. It's keeping the moisture down, and it's breaking down for the microbes. Now, the other thing we want to have in our crops, even in our grasses when we're doing for grazing, but in this case you see that there's an attempt to have a variety. And you already do that to the point of having maize and beans planted together. That's 2 crops. Where you just have one crop, a monoculture we say, one culture, one thing you're cultivating, then it doesn't help with the diversity of the microbes under the ground. They're only going to send a certain number of workers to do that. But there's other ones that would be beneficial to your plants, but they need to have other plants that will draw those other microbes. So we have the maize, we have beans. I've also put squash and melons in here. I have flowers that you could put sunflowers throughout. So if you have a diversity, that's beneficial for these microbes. You're building the soil with it. Okay, the fourth thing about soil health is that you want to have living roots in your soil at all times. So when our crops are completed and we're harvesting them, we're collecting our maize and drying it out and all that, don't forget to put something in the ground. Now we can put things like, clover, or some things that maybe buckwheat, some things that will grow readily and keep. Why do we want living roots in the ground at all times? Because again, we're working on building that soil, and the microbes are going to be happy because they're going to be getting something to eat at all times. So keep living soil, don't have bare ground. And the final principle here is to integrate animals, livestock. And of course, that's what I've tried to model here. With these strips of grass left in between the strips they're planting, and putting the maize a bit closer together than we would in just having maize in one field, then I'm still getting a pretty close, similar amount of maize in the overall field, but I'm leaving these strips that I can now introduce livestock. Now, there's nothing better than to be able to utilize the manure from chickens or even sheep, and particularly cows, in helping to build your soil. And having cow manure is a great help for doing your compost. So those are the 5 principles. Limited disturbance, keep your soil covered, keep the armor on the soil, we call it. Have a diversity of plants that you're growing together. Always have roots living and growing in your soil. And then fifthly, to integrate animals.